Hi guys, I'm Willis. Examine the past. Have you ever wondered whether communism or fascism was more destructive? To begin with, I would like to introduce a famous quote from Professor Elie Wiesel. It reads, "For the dead and the living happened during the past." So, let's focus on our essential question. To compare whether communism or fascism is more destructive, we're going to examine Stalin's rule from 1920 to 1953 in the Soviet Union for communism. For fascism, we're going to learn fascism under Adolf Hitler's rule from 1934 to 1945 in Germany. First of all, communism in theory is different from its actual practice. The word communism, in theory, is a form of government that eliminates private property and the creation of class states. Based on Marx, the founder of communism, people eventually would embrace an authentic freedom because people are eventually equal. Communism in practice is different from its theory. Not only did people not embrace true freedom, they were forced to work for a country. Those who protested on harsh conditions usually were killed or sent to concentration camps to work as slaves. Stalin obtained the power after the death of Vladimir Lenin. In case you don't know, Lenin was a Bolshevik leader. Stalin replaced the idea of New Economic Policy, NEP, with socialism in one country. The concept of New Economic Policy was originally proposed by Lenin, who believed that private individuals should have small enterprises and the state continue to control banks and industries. As he said, the NEP was a major transformation occurring politically, economically, culturally, and spiritually. It was also known as state capitalism. The concept of socialism in one country, proposed by Stalin, was a way to advance USSR in industrialization to improve itself. Destructions caused by Stalin can be split into three categories: the Great Purge, religion, and famine. During 1934 to 1940, triggered by the death of Sergei Korov, Stalin launched the Great Purge. It was purged toward government officials and the Communist Party. Suspicions about saboteurs, or those who disrupt politics, imprisonment and arbitrary executions were all over in Soviet Union. Stalin also destroyed churches. For example, Stalin ordered to destroy the Palace of the Soviets in December 5, 1931, in Moscow, Russia, near the Kremlin. Stalin believed that religion was an opium that needed to be removed. Ukraine famine, also known as the Holodomor, was created by Joseph Stalin. The cause of Holodomor was the confiscation of Ukrainian grain to feed industrial workers. Protesters against Soviet police were shot or exiled to regions in Serbia to become laborers. Families that hid their food were killed as well. Overall, the goal of Ukraine famine was to weaken nationalists and force people to accept the role of Soviet Union. About 7.5 million people were dead in Ukraine famine. Regarding Gulag, 1 million were imprisoned. 2 to 3 million peasants were arrested or exiled in the mass collectivization program. Collectivization was the abolition of small farms combining a large farm for people. Farmers were forced to leave lands. About 5 or 7 million people were sent to the Gulag. 6 to 7 million people were killed by famine. 4 million were from other causes. Let's look at fascism. Fascism is a form of radical authoritarian nationalism that valued power more than individual rights such as freedom of speech, press, and religion. Fascism is also classified under totalitarianism, which is a form of authoritarian government that seeks to control all aspects of lives of publics. Fascists were conservatives who wanted to follow the old path of history. When Adolf Hitler joined the German Workers' Party, which later on known as the Nazi Party, in 1919. In February 26, 1924, Hitler was charged with treason based on consequences of the Beer Hall Putsch, which was an attempt made by him to seize power in Munich, Bavaria. He was sent to a Landsberg prison for a 5-year sentence. He wrote a famous book called Mein Kampf, My Struggle, and stated how he believed in social Darwinism. Social Darwinism was a notion that a person believes his race is superior than any other races. In this case, Hitler believed that Germans are better than other non-Germans, such as Jews, and should be eliminated. Destructions made by Hitler could be categorized as Holocaust, Action T4, opposition toward Jewish churches, and Nero Decree. Holocaust was a mass murder of Jews. About 9 million Jews, 2/3 of them were killed. Over 1 million of Jewish children were killed. 2 million Jewish women were killed, and 3 million Jewish men were killed. There were over 40,000 facilities to keep hold of Jews. As for Soviet prisoners of war, Germany officials saw them as threats. They viewed the Soviet prisoners of war as Slavic subhumans and Bolshevik threats, and thus classified them along with Jews. And lastly, homosexuals. Homosexuals were rejected by Fascism because it failed to pass down the master race. Around 5,000 to 15,000 homosexual men were in concentration camps. Lesbians did not receive harsh treatment, but only labeled as asocial. Action T4 was a program that carried with doctors who used euthanasia to kill those who were judged as incurably sick, based on professional medication examination in Germany under Hitler's rule. Action T4 officially was not further executed in 1945 after the fall of Third Reich. There were at least 200,000 patients who were killed through ways including starvation and gas chambers. About 300 Jewish churches were destroyed by Hitler. For example, Arnold Frank's Jerusalem Church in Habsburg was destroyed by the Nazis in 1942. The full name of Nero Decree is Demolitions on Reich Territory Decree. On March 19, 1945, Hitler ordered the Nero Decree to destroy infrastructures in Germany. He set up bombs in places including landmarks and transportation hubs. He did not want Allied forces to use those infrastructures. As he stated in his speech, it is a mistake to think that transport and communication facilities, industrial establishments and supply depots, which have not been destroyed, or have been temporarily put out of action, can be used again for our own ends when the lost territory has been recovered. The enemy will leave with nothing but scorched earth when he withdraws, without paying the slightest regard to the population. Hitler did not surrender to the Allied forces. Overall, after I finish explaining both sides, I believe fascism led by Adolf Hitler from 1934 to 1945 in Germany was more destructive than communism led by Joseph Stalin from 1920 to 1953. It was because Hitler killed more people than Stalin did. You can conclude that Hitler killed about 40 million of people. On the other hand, Stalin killed about 20 million of people. The difference was 20 million. Hitler, he intended to destroy infrastructures in the cities that they have destroyed. For instance, Paris, as means to prevent enemies from using them. Hitler also created genocide of Jews because he defined Jews as subhumans, whereas Germans are master race. His notion of social Darwinism motivated him to eliminate groups including Soviet prisoners of war, Soviet civilians, and homosexuals.